All right, so we are in lesson 3.3, Variation and Adaptation. As always, please feel free to pause the video and write down your learning goal and then come back when you're ready to continue learning. Let's begin with our first guiding question. If we all come from a common ancestor, why don't we all look the same? And that is because of variation. Variation definitely affects our ability to survive and reproduce. So remember, variation is the differences within a species. And we're using this term here, affect, as either helpful or hurtful. So whenever you see the word affect on your regions, you want to make sure that you're being very specific about whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. So remember that every species shows its own variation. And with these variations, it can either make us either better fit or less fit for the environment. So through evolution, over time, we all evolved these different variations because the differences allowed for some to survive and for others to die, and those that survived reproduced. So let's think about it. Like, what causes the differences in all of these species, even though we came from the common ancestor? So variations come from two things. It can come from either a genetic mutation or sexual reproduction. So mutations are just random changes in DNA. And it can happen due to the environment, sunlight, or just it literally just something random happening. And in sexual reproduction, genes get shuffled and mixed, creating new combinations. That's why that those who have siblings that comes from the same mom and same dad, you all don't look exactly the same because you're the sperm and the egg shuffled around the different traits. So we're going to talk about what is an adaptation. And an adaptation is a specific trait that helps with survival or reproduction. So that word trait is a characteristic or a feature. An example of a trait is brown eyes is a trait. So there are two types of adaptations. There's a behavioral adaptation and there is physical adaptations. Adaptations come from helpful variations that has been passed down, but not all adaptations are traits. So for example, of a behavioral adaptation is learning to migrate or how to find food, make a shelter. As humans, we have a behavioral adaptation of reading, communication, mating, courtship, finding a boo thing. These are all examples of behavioral adaptations. Some physical adaptations could be a how something looks. So it's on the body. So it could be the type of feet something has, the claws, the mouth, the body coverings, if there's camouflage. An example of another adaptation that we spoke about before is a giraffe having long enough neck to reach the trees. So do animals adapt on purpose? No, adaptations are not choices. They are changes that happen over many, many generations. When traits that help organisms survive become more common in the population, they pass it down. Organisms don't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I need to grow thicker fur or I want longer legs. Instead, these small differences, again called traits, already exist within their population. Some of these traits make it easier for them to survive and have babies or reproduce. And over many generations, these helpful traits become more common because the organisms with those traits are more likely to survive and pass them on. So, for example, in the Arctic, there are some rabbits that are born with white fur and some are born with brown fur. White fur rabbits are harder to see in the snow, so they're less likely to get eaten. So over several generations, the white fur rabbits that were able to survive had babies and they passed on the traits for having white fur. So now most of the Arctic rabbits have white fur. But in the forest rabbit, their brown fur blends in with the trees and the dirt. And if they had white fur, they would stand out. So those rabbits who, if we take an Arctic rabbit and we put them in a forest, they will most likely stand out, die quickly, and not be able to reproduce and pass on those traits. So over many generations, in the forest rabbit, they have brown fur because of these adaptations and being better fit for their environment.